So, time has finally come. It's another one I've been meaning to do for a while. I want to do this as early as last month, really, but once again, and reality got in the way of my plans. Plus, I was still recovering from flu-like symptoms, but since my throat is clear enough for this, as is my head, might as well get this over with. Since Lionsgate has not been doing so hot lately, with a reported loss of $94 million and their turnaround this year not really yielding into results. Fingers crossed about Now You See Me 3, as well as their next Hunger Games prequel, Songs on the Repeat next year, doing better. I thought I would look at another one of their three major flops from last year. Here, Borderlands, I previously covered, which reminded us how bad a video game adaptation can be and how big a flop it can be after other ones have seen time to realize how good and successful it can be. Megalopolis, which was a more ambitious failure. Her, I mean, even though I may not agree with everything they said, I at least give them credit where it's due in the whole fudge what the market's doing. I want to make something that's what I want to make the way I want to make it. And today's subject, not only something that, as I'm about to explain, doesn't work as a remake of an original film, doesn't work as a movie as own merit, nor does it work as an adaptation of every bit as beloved graphic novel. So here is a painfully honest look at 2024's The Crow, my least favorite comic movie of 2024. Let's begin. I also made sure not only to rewatch the original 1994 cult classic, but also to read and reread a James Barnes graphic novel because even though they claimed it was going to be a more faithful adaptation of the comic, while also doing its own thing, that proved to not be the case in the slightest. As because apart from the director Rupert Sanders, close to every cast member and other crew member has gone there out of the way distance of the movie in some way, shape, or form. So nothing personal against them. Yeah. As I was saying, when you want to anger fans of beloved 90s cult classic by making a bunch of controversial changes to the casting and the story, you end up hiring a director who'd end up doing the exact same thing to Ghost in the Shell in 2017. And even though I would argue that some of those elements are symptoms of the problems, but they're not the cause. There's also, even fact moving the how many years this version was in development hell, just not to be profanely accurate. It's, it, large swaths of the audience on principle rejected the very idea because of the tragic loss of Brandon Lee with that film being made. And the sentiment shared by not only law surviving cast members, here's the original film's director Alex Proyas, but if I had to pick one take that most accurately captured the lack of faith in this remake, it would have to be from James O'Barr, who remarked, "It would not matter if they gave it a budget of $100 million and got Ridley Scott to direct, it would not be The Crow." Which was an accurate summation, given how not only did it make less at the box office in its entire domestic run than the original did its opening weekend, and alone before inflation, on $50 million, it grossed back ultimately less than a fifth of that domestically. And naturally, it critics and audiences were sharply divided on as well. Hell, and when the he leads say it was not the script we signed on for, I believe them. When he screenwriter says it was not the script we wrote, as not being retooled by the studio, I also believe them. Because it's not. I'm not joking when I say, like, even though Deadpool and Wolverine was the only comp movie that managed to get uniformly positive critical and audience reception and make a lot of money, he being the only one hit the billion mark last year. Here, even the other ones that ended up being coming out that year at least have some quality I could get some enjoyment out of. I mean, Venom: The Last Dance, well, I thought was actually pretty decent. Madden Web and Craven weren't great, but they were at least a fun kind of bad movies. Like this wasn't fun. In fact, the biggest surprise I had was when just how dull it was. Like how I've used an analogy before, but it's like if I powered off my display and just watched a blank screen for an hour and 50 minutes, I could probably imagine something more entertaining. So let's get to it. So, right off, I can say that even though the scene with the horse caught in the barbed wire fence was technically in the comic, the way it was presented was not. In the comic, it was for a brief moment when Eric was on the train. That's when and he first met Shelley, and even though we only saw glimpses of scenes in photographs in the 94 movie, it still was a very effective way of portraying how their love for each other was genuine, and they really are going to be married on Halloween night, hey, before they were tragically killed on Devil's Night the night before, and also take the opportunity to mention that the setup and pacing are way worse in the remake than in the comic or the 94 film. Sure, I'll acknowledge that the original film took some creative liberties, but there are ones that made sense and so sort of trying to tell, and they were also pragmatic. Like in a sense, like in many ways, the original film was exactly where it needed to be in terms of like the comic landscape of the time, like come right in the wake of success of like the Tim Burton version of Batman and the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie a similar kind of neo-noir kind of look and feel where it definitely also happened to be striking on its own. I never really got that impression with this new one. I mean, the way it was shot, it just lacked any memorable image, like how occasionally it'll be lit a certain way, but I still boggle how this made it theaters at all when it just has this whole straight to VOD aura about it. Where, well, even a lot of things are framing and edits. That's the whole thing. Like, a lot of these ones actually just lack flair. I mean, it even caused a lot of people to compare, like, the new design, we'll get to that, unfavorably to Lita's variant of the Joker's, like, ooh, that's harsh. Warranted to a degree, but still harsh. And even the cohesion in the new movie, it doesn't really build much. Like how for some reason, and the villain is someone named Rogue, played by Danny Houston, and who may or may not be he his own Pat, and he's also like a mobster slash pharmaceutical executive. That and even his underlings who managed to install themselves in everywhere from art galleries is to hospital security guards, though I didn't initially realize that when I first revealed them. Um, which is not a good sign. Sign, which it definitely lacks the same impression that Top Dollar and his underlings had in the comic of the original film. Um, Not just with the performance of those actors, but also just the way in the original his in the comic him dealing and his vices by my count employ at least 4 or 5 of the 7 deadly sins in Spain. And same deal with a lot of the action as well, man. Oh man. I was one of the people who was remarking that it looked a bit like a John Wick movie from Timu, even right down having seen a distributor, and openly he's stating that the R rating was not going to be enough to sell people when the other ones I was watching, like Deadpool and Wolverine and Alien Romulus, has had something else offer in terms of story, characters, and visuals, man. Again, it's like the simile view is also like selling beef to a Texan, and if someone wants it, they definitely know where to get it and know where to get it for good. Exactly. So they're not obviously not going to settle for like the steaks at Megalomart when and they can get tasty ones from a local co-op just like that. And while the original movie opens on the tragic fate of Eric and Shelley, like, and the comic also builds up to its a decent amount of pacing, in where her top dollars, all those minions end up uh, attacking Eric and Shelley when they're trying to fix up their car on a rainy night. It's it, the one constant is that there was no spirit guide beyond the titular crow. Oh, that it makes sense, hence that while one is dead, the other is a soul who has yet to finish his business, which always a concept fascinated me. A that personally, a and it's always made more touching, given not just with Brandon's loss, but also the fact that James wrote the comic after he lost his fiancee, in a similar way. That's hey, I never really got that vibe here with this remake. Not only does it take at least half the movie's runtime for Eric to really become the persona, Hona, and even the much lauded opera house scene did not do a whole lot for me at all. Oh, I mean, in fact, not only was it barely coherent, it could have actually been done in a way that would have been much more effective in the story. I mean, that's the whole thing. Again, and it felt like a lesser scene from the John Wick franchise, which has been known for nothing if not how creative they can get with their action scenes. That the way those filmmakers work with blades and firearms are done in the artistry in the way others people work with paints or sheet music. Where, I mean, I still really get a kick out of the flamethrower duel and ballerina as well, and gives me a lot of confidence in the same people working on their Streets of Rage adaptation of Prime. Like I said before, look at the right lens. Ava is basically like Blaze Fielding, John's Axel Stone, and Gilbert Burns characters like Mr. X, I mean, like that. So, and it just feels like it leaves no impression on you at all, which even the more divisive outings have something that leaves on you. I mean, City of Angels was at least was an early attempt at depicting the Day of the Dead on film before later Herx managed to do it in much more expansive ways. I mean, some of the more devoted DTV sequels are good for a few laughs, over a chat with your preferred heard beverage of choice. The short-lived TV show had some pretty strong from Mark Dacascos, and even that terrible game for Saturn and PlayStation, at least definitely helped me appreciate the action games I do really like. I mean, I'm not objective if they want to take another go at it, like do something like that, where they're making some retro reimagined games of everything from Terminator to Halloween to Evil Dead to even stuff like Terrifier Rocky Horror Picture Show, so it could work. But this movie, it doesn't work at all. And while I I do not think that Sanders is certainly incapable of improving as a filmmaker, based on the result and he seemed to be the only one really actively advocating for this movie. That seems unlikely. Hey, I mean, and also it's another issue I'm going to be addressing in other times during the week. I mean, hey, if you want to make a movie adaptation, you're free to do so. Just don't claim you are and then be able to have out yourself as a liar about it too. So there's that. I mean, and even the second Joker at least took a few more creative risks, even if they didn't pay off. While this, I have no issue saying this is my least favorite comic movie of 2024 at all. Oh, hence why I used that font for my thumbnail. So that'll be all for now. I'll see you all again soon because it can't rain all the time.